The house I inherited from my late uncle stood as an enigma in the heart of the town, an ancient relic that time had forgotten. It loomed over the neighborhood, an eerie monument that held within its walls a legacy more haunting than anyone dared to admit. Whispers of its sinister past trickled through the community like a venomous fog, a chilling tale of dark deeds and malevolent forces that had etched themselves into the very fibers of the place. The townspeople spoke in hushed tones, casting wary glances in my direction as I stood before the imposing structure. Their eyes bore a mix of pity and apprehension, as if they knew the horror that awaited me within those walls. Each fleeting glance seemed to say, "Beware the house, for it is not merely a dwelling but a gateway to something beyond comprehension." My uncle, a reclusive figure who had chosen to live within the confines of the house's ominous embrace, had always been an enigma himself. The few who had glimpsed him spoke of his hollow gaze, an unsettling stare that seemed to peer beyond the veil of the material world. He had been a man of eccentricities, a solitary soul who shunned the world beyond his doorstep, and in doing so, had become a part of the very fabric of the house he inhabited. When news of his passing reached me, it carried with it an air of foreboding. It was as if the house itself mourned his departure, its darkened windows casting shadows that seemed to stretch and sway in the absence of light. As I entered the abode that was now mine, a sense of unease settled within me, a feeling that I was not alone, that unseen eyes were fixed upon me, observing my every move with a mixture of curiosity and something far more sinister. The first night in the house was a lesson in the uncanny, a symphony of creaks and whispers that echoed through the halls. The moon's pale light filtered through the windows, casting elongated shadows that seemed to stretch like phantoms eager to embrace the living. The very air felt heavy with the weight of secrets, as if the walls themselves held within them memories that longed to be shared. The days that followed were a descent into an ever-deepening abyss of unease. A pervasive feeling of being watched clung to me, a sensation that burrowed under my skin like 1,000 invisible eyes. Each time I turned, I could almost catch the fleeting glimpse of movement, a shadow retreating around a corner, a figure vanishing into thin air. It was when night fell that the true terror began to unfurl. The walls seemed to exhale, their ancient timbers creaking as if the very house were alive, a malevolent entity that pulsed with a hunger that could not be sated. My footsteps echoed like drumbeats in the silence, each one a reminder that I was not alone, never alone, in that house. And then there were the whispers, the soft susurration of voices that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. They were indistinct at first, an ethereal symphony of sound that seemed to weave through the air like tendrils of smoke. As the hours wore on, the whispers grew clearer, and their words took shape, whispers of despair, of malevolence, of secrets that were never meant to be unveiled. One evening, as I ventured through the dimly lit corridors, a draft of icy wind rushed past me, extinguishing the candles that lined the hallway. In the ensuing darkness, a presence seemed to manifest, a spectral figure that lingered just at the edge of sight, a silhouette that seemed to flicker and waver like a mirage. Its eyes bore into me, eyes that held within them an abyss of anguish and longing, a presence that had transcended the boundaries of life and death. I fled to the basement, driven by an inexplicable force that seemed to guide my footsteps. The door groaned open, revealing a yawning abyss that beckoned me to descend into its depths. Each step seemed to take me further away from the world of the living and into a realm that existed beyond the veil of reason. The air grew dense and suffocating, as if the basement itself were a living entity, a malevolent force that sought to ensnare me in its clutches. Shadows danced along the walls, their movements a twisted dance that seemed to mimic the very essence of fear itself. My flashlight's feeble glow cast distorted shapes that seemed to writhe and contort, as if the darkness itself were alive and hungry. And then, with a surge of frigid wind, the flashlight flickered and died, an otherworldly force extinguishing its fragile flame. Panic surged within me, and I fumbled for a lighter, its spark casting elongated, distorted shadows that danced like mocking phantoms. In the ensuing darkness, the whispers intensified, a chorus of voices that mingled and melded, weaving tales of agony, betrayal, and unspeakable horrors. The very walls seemed to throb with their torment, as if the very essence of the basement had absorbed the suffering of souls long gone. Fear gripped me, an icy hand that clenched around my heart as the realization settled in. I was not alone in the basement. Shapes began to materialize, twisted forms that seemed to materialize from the very shadows. Hollow eyes fixated upon me, and the air seemed to grow thick with their presence, a presence that exuded malevolence and a hunger that transcended the boundaries of the material world. Their whispers grew louder, their voices intertwining in a symphony of despair and malevolence. The walls seemed to vibrate with their torment, the very basement itself saturated with the essence of their suffering. I stumbled back, each step a desperate retreat from a force that defied comprehension. As I burst through the basement door, the air outside felt like a cleansing balm, a reprieve from the darkness that had gripped me below. But even as I stood in the safety of the hallway, a gnawing awareness settled within me. The basement's secrets remained, a labyrinth of horror that defied explanation. The house had become a vessel of malevolence, a portal to a realm that should never have been breached. The shadows it cast were no longer benign, but charged with an energy that seemed to defy the laws of nature. Every creak, every whisper, every flicker of movement, it all carried the weight of the paranormal, a reality that lurked just beyond the veil of our comprehension. Fear had not merely brushed against me, it had become an indelible mark on my very soul. The house, once a sanctuary, had become a conduit to the unknown, a vessel through which malevolent forces could reach out and touch the living. The whispers of the past lingered in my thoughts, a constant reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be unraveled, and that the line between the living and the beyond is one that should never be crossed.